Welcome to the Women, Faith Plus Business podcast. I'm your host, Nadine Mullings. I'm an author, speaker, and marketing mentor, and I believe in the importance of women of faith in business stepping up and shining in their lane so they can have the impact, income, and influence they were born to make. Join me this season to hear the stories of powerful women of faith who have authored a purpose-driven book to make a difference in the world. And be sure to join the Women Faith Plus Business community on Facebook by going to nadinemullings.com/community. That's nadinemullings.com/community. See you in the powerful community of women of faith in business, and enjoy this episode of the Women Faith Plus Business podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Women Faith Plus Business podcast. Now, I know I say this every single episode. I'm always excited to speak to the guests that I have on the show, and I'm excited to talk to Roslyn today. I think I've known you for like a couple years now, Roslyn. Can you believe how time just flies? I
Yes.
met her at a chamber event. So I attended a local chamber event here in Miramar, Pembroke Pines area. So I definitely recommend whatever area that you're in, attend those local events. You're going to meet and network with some amazing people. So I met Roslyn. She was one of the speakers. I had to go up after the event and talk to her because she did such an amazing job. And during her presentation, she also talked about NABO, which is a National Association of Women Business Owners. And after that, I went ahead and looked up NABO for South Florida and attended a couple of their meetings. And now I'm a member. So that's all thanks to Rosalind. So I definitely appreciate her. She's a sweet spirit and definitely very super professional. So welcome to the podcast, Roslyn Rice.
Oh, thank you so much. It is so great to be here, Nadine, and I am thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with you today.
Awesome, awesome. So Rosalind is the author of Power of One, Finding Hope in the Midst of Struggle. So I want to talk a little bit, of course, we're going to talk a lot about the book, but I want to first of all introduce you officially. I kind of did the unofficial introduction with how we met and how we connected, but I also want to make sure that people know how amazing you are with your official bio. So Rosalind Rice is a speaker, best-selling author, business consultant, and in a world of complexity, she is on a global mission to change the world one word at a time. Roslyn, as I mentioned, is a best-selling author of Power of One, Finding Hope in the Midst of Struggle, the book we're going to be talking about today. She embraces storytelling, relevant facts, and humor to pull in her audience and bravely inspire them. She is the co-founder of DPI LLC, a high-impact business consulting firm equipping leaders to discover the tools to accelerate their success. Who wants to accelerate their success? Hands up, please. In 2024, she received recognition from the United States Congress for her commitment to serving the community. She currently serves as past president of NABO, National Association of Women Business Owners, for the South Florida chapter, and a lead consultant with Florida International University Small Business Development Center. Welcome officially now to the podcast.
Yay!
It's always great when you get to hear good things about yourself, right? A lot of people are like, is that me? Is that really me? When we read
What
that
you talking
official
about?
bio. It's you. It's you. You are that amazing. So we're talking today about your book, your best-selling book, Power
Yeah.
of One, Finding Hope in the Midst of Struggle. And I want to share a little bit about the book before we get into the conversation for today. How do you bounce back after you've been reduced to zero? How do you move forward when you are sitting in uncertainty? How do you respond after betrayal? You cling to the power of one word. One word spoken at the right time can change the complete trajectory of your life. Author Rosalind Rice has always had an addiction to words. I love that. I'm the same way. Words, I love words. Each chapter in her Power of One, Finding Hope in the Midst of Struggle, focuses on one word. At the end of every devotion, Rosalind shares a passage of scripture, question, and a prayer to jumpstart application of the one word in your daily life. Prepare to be encouraged and equipped by the inspired devotional power of one.
Yay.
Awesome, awesome. So we read about the book, and of course, if you're watching the video, you can see the book cover in the background. But we know that it was probably a journey to get here, right? There was it took a while to get here, and I always love to hear those backstories or even just the inspiration of what made you decide to go on this journey and become a published author. So I'd love for you to share with the audience, what was that journey for you? What was that inspiration? What was that backstory of the power of one?
Thank you so much. So, Power of One was literally 10 years in the making in regards to I was on a walk. I think when I am out in nature walking, I think that's when I hear the voice of the Lord most clearly. And I remember him saying to me, "You will be an author." And like many of us, we sometimes will add to what God says, like, you're going to be a best selling author. You're going to be a that type of author. No, he just said you're going to be an author. And so immediately I kind of changed and start moving in that trajectory with that word that he had given me, and went to a writers conference and start writing a draft and a manuscript and hired an editor and so many things to go through a literary agent and be able to pitch this book that was going to be about submission and surrender, which is probably the most un like it's a topic no one wants to hear, right? We know that we need to do it, but nobody wants a book called Submission and Surrender. And so I was told no multiple times. And I think, like many of us, you're like, well, I'm just doing what he told me to do. Like, what, Lord, you told me to do this. Why am I getting this rejection? Um, but I think some of the greatest opposition that we faced is truly um, an illusion in regards to it's moving us into a deeper level of knowing Him, and really contending for the word that He gave us. And so 10 years later, I, continued life and it was working, had a full-time job. Thank God I didn't quit that, but had a full-time job. And when I got laid off from that job, the world was changing. It was 2020 and the world was changing so much. And it allowed me to kind of go back to that dream of you're going to be an author. And so I would start writing in the way that I would understand the world that was so unprecedented at that time. God would give me one word, and I would focus on that one word all week. And every single chapter is those 40 words that were given to me during that season of loss. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important because I love that God dropped the fact that you're going to be an author in your spirit. Because I've heard a lot of times on the podcast, people say God dropped a word or a phrase in their spirit, right? And then they didn't fully know what it meant, but then it was a book, a movement, a brand. I've talked about that several times on the podcast. But I think you're one of the first individuals, and I have to think back, that said God dropped a title in their spirit, right? He gave you a description of who you're going to be, and as you were talking, it made me think of like Gideon, right? When he was like, you're a mighty warrior, and he didn't see himself as a mighty warrior at the time, but God dropped that title in his spirit. So it just goes to show God can drop a word, he can drop a phrase, he can drop a position, a title in your spirit. But true to every story that's biblical, it takes a time. It takes time, right? There's a journey. It wasn't, easy for you to get to the space that you're in right now with the published book, especially after facing so much rejection, and kind of putting it on the back burner. But there was something amazing about the year 2020 for so many people. It just shifted so much worldwide in each one of us, in the world in general, but each one of us. So it took that shift of 2020, that pivot, as the world was saying so much then, to really have you focus on that position that he gave you as author and really dig deep into what you needed to work on, and that one word is what pulled you through during that season. So I love that that was a part of your journey and a part of your story. So once you decided to sit down and focus on the one word to write your book, what was the vision for the book? What was the vision of, what you wanted to do with the book or what the book would become, or did you even have a vision?
Yeah, no, actually, at that time when I was, kind of writing one word, so I'm a writer, true at heart, like ever since a little girl, and reading, I love reading. So the one word was truly for me. It wasn't really for anyone else. I didn't know at that moment that it would be a book, but my pastor had come to me and asked. At that point, I was chairwoman of the board at my church, and he had asked for me to come and just share like 5 minutes of inspiration. We would do IG Live every day at 12 o'clock and have what we call a Selah moment. And, what do you say week after week? And the world was changing so incredibly fast. And so, really, God gave me, it would just be one word, whether it was courage, whether it was hope, whether it was revive, whether it was trust, whether it was peace, whatever that word is. And as I would be writing down the notes that I would share at my church on IG Live, it was September of that year. I'll never forget it. September 2020. I was in the shower, and he said, "Selah is a book." That was it. And I didn't know a thing. I thought I had done this before. I had, tried to go through a literary agent, and I really knew that I wanted to go down the path of self-publishing. I wanted to be able to kind of really have complete control of my book and royalty and all of that. So I just start searching and would just every morning wake up and say, Lord, show me the right next step to take. I know I don't need to know from A to Z, but can you just give me the right next step? And that's how it continued.
Yeah, so I love that because it goes along with what you said about him dropping in your
Yeah.
spirit that you were an author. So after he dropped in your spirit that you were author, he dropped in the spirit that Selah was the book, right? So the next step was, even though logically you went through the whole process years before of creating this book, that wasn't the book. It's almost like Ishmael, right? You were creating an Ishmael in the original book that you were trying to do, but this was Isaac. Power of One was your Isaac. That was the promised book or the
Yeah.
book that God had for you, right? So I
Yes.
love that he dropped in your spirit that Selah, which turned into Power of One, was the book, and that's what you needed to publish. And I also love that it started with just you, like it was for you, it wasn't for anyone else, that initial word. And then when you had to share it with your church, it became for you and your congregation, right? The people in your church. But then God had so much more in store for that word. It was not just for you, it was not just for your congregation, it was actually for the world. And it was for the world to consume and to really understand. So let's talk about some of the words. I know you had to pick 40 in order to make the book 40 devotionals. Was it easy coming up with 40 words that you would focus on? Like, for example, every year, I
Absolutely.
love the power of one word, right? Because every year I pick a word. Well, I wouldn't even say I pick a word. I feel like I'm guided to a word,
Yeah.
what God is calling me to a particular season. And that word is definitely my anchor word for the entire year. My word for this year is expand, right? So it's all about expansion, and however it shows up is how God chooses and sees fit for it to show up, right? He just drops the word in my spirit. And I know when I read your book, you talked about you do the same thing, picking one word for the year or being guided or led to one word. So this is different because it's not just one word, it's actually 40. So
Mhm.
tell us about the process of how you narrowed it down to these 40 words. Are you a woman of faith in business who has a desire to get more clients, make a difference, and make a huge impact in the world? Nadine Mullings Marketing Agency helps women of faith in business develop a marketing strategy so they can market their book, brand, or business with clarity and confidence so they can acquire clients with ease and flow. Call us at 954-947-7510 or reach us at nadinemullings.com.
That's a great question. Like, I didn't do it, right? That was spirit led. So every week that I was writing, and every week I would come up with a different word. I felt like the world was so complex that there had to be this simplicity. I'm a very simple, practical type of professional. And so the way that the Lord guided me to the one word, it would literally, that word, whatever it was for that week, would leap off the page. My obedience in that process was to set an atmosphere to hear his voice, to make sure that I was postured to hear what he was saying. And if you remember anything about 2020, what first greeted us was silence, right? Things start shutting down, and you were at home. And so there was just this deafening silence all over the world, really. And so I was able to just posture myself to hear him. And as I start understanding the way in which he was speaking to me, I'm like, I just knew every week, oh Lord, that's the word. It would just leap off of the page. It could have been something I heard on TV. It could have been heard in a conversation, but there would just be one word that I would hear over and over and over again. And I would sit down and say, Lord, I keep hearing you say this word. What do you want me to know about this word in this moment? So when it came time to figure out what was to put in the book, remember, it was he had already guided me to the words. It was just now putting it into book form, devotional form.
Yeah, I love that. That's so powerful that it was guided, right? And I love that you said it leapt off the page. Like it stood out. Like this is it. It was easy for you because you were in the flow of God working through you as to what that word needed to be. And there is power in one word. I love in the book where you said words can inspire and uplift. They can also tear down and destroy. Words carry influence. One word can trigger a new behavior or a positive thought. You also said, as I highlighted a couple of things here, and there's another part that I wanted to highlight and make sure I shared from the book. I found one word easier to digest. I replaced resolutions with one word. And each devotion in the book focuses on one word. Scriptures are shared that will reference that one word. So tell us a little bit about the thought process of replacing your New Year's resolutions with one word. So I talked about how I pick one word every year. And to be honest, now that I think about it, I don't really do resolutions as much or at all either. But what was that process like for you where you found one word easier to digest and you replaced it, one word with your resolutions? I mean,
Yeah,
you replace your resolutions with one word.
yes, we are like getting ready to be really into the holiday season, right? We're smack dab into the holiday season. I think for me, it was resolutions always, I failed.
Mm.
By the end of the first week, I would fail and I would feel some type of way. I didn't even make it to the first month. Like I would fail within the first week. And so, having a North Star of a word that God would place in my spirit, I already have my word for 2025.
Mm.
My
Do you
word for
feel led to share that with us or not
no,
yet?
like, yeah, not
Okay.
yet.
Because I was going to
I
say, by the time this comes out, we'll be closer to
I
2025.
know. I always do it as a reveal on December 31st. So yeah, no, won't
Gotcha.
reveal it
Any
yet, but
hints? Any hints? Can we get some
yeah,
hints?
no.
I'm
um,
trying to get the scoop. I'm trying to get
I
the
know.
exclusive, right? I can say exclusively here on the Power on the Women Faith Plus Business podcast.
I will tell you what my word for this year is Jubilee. That is my word for
Mm.
this year. But so I am thankful that I learned, and this was actually through my corporate life. I learned about the power of one, choosing one word in the beginning of the year to kind of remove the limitations of these resolutions that you might fail at, and then you kind of beat yourself up, and then you start all over again the next year, and you go for years or decades without really accomplishing what you set out to do. But if you take that one word and allow it to kind of guide you and be a North Star and understand in any circumstance how that word will take meaning and take root, you really get to learn a lot about that one word. So I absolutely enjoy the one word experience and again being postured to hear what the Lord is leading me into for the next year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So I'm excited to hear what that one word is for you for 2025. Does he usually drop it in your spirit pretty early or it just varies
Always.
every year?
No,
Always?
always. Mhm.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, one of the things with the book slash devotional, would you say it's a devotional too, or would you
Yes,
classify as a devotional? So
yes.
one of the things with the devotional is in addition to the one word, you also make sure that you found the word in the scripture, right? So it's one word and the word, a scripture to match the word. So tell us a little bit about that process. Was it easy to identify? Did you have to do a lot of research as to what scripture verse you wanted to use to go along with that one word?
No, it wasn't. There was that part was not hard at all. When you are Bible read, which I am, I would think of God would place in my spirit, I should say, um, like how you're saying Gideon and Ishmael, and there would be a story, and as I would go back and read that story, like that word would be right there. So, no, it was not hard at all. Like it was, again, I was in a posture to hear. I didn't have to do really any research, although it's easy to find one word in scripture with any Bible app or Google search or anything like that. But no, it wasn't hard at all. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So tell us a few of the words. What were some of the 40 words that you have in the devotional? What were some of the key words that you had as the power of one for the 40-day devotional?
Well, I will say what I love about the power of one and the way that God kind of put this together in partnership with my co-publisher at the time was the ability that you don't have to read this cover to cover. You go through the table of contents, you find a word that speaks in your spirit or just jumps out at you, and you just read that. You can read that one chapter for 6 months and really embody that word, right? So that is the one thing that I love about it. But my favorite word, and when I've done interviews, whether it's TV, podcast, has always been, well, what's your favorite word? It's my number one word. It is the first word in the book, which is courage. I remember um, thinking that courage was this big word and that there wasn't going to be fear or, feeling afraid when there's courage. And I've learned that courage is truly being able to have the fear there, the thing that makes you afraid, and you're still moving forward. I was in a hospital with my son who had kind of been sick for 60 plus days. And I remember going into the hospital, he was isolated because of this contagious virus that he had. And I was just being whizzed around with this sweet baby boy. And I thought to myself, what is going on? And there was a nurse that spoke a word of encouragement to me. And that's how I know one word can change the trajectory of your life. I want to say that, and I know you understand from a marketing perspective, we're always talking about who are you targeting with this book. This book is truly written for someone in a season of loss. And I want to be clear about that. The book will feel like it's simple, but when you are going through a deep, dark season of loss, it could be loss of a job, loss of a loved one, loss of a routine, however you classify loss of a relationship. um, when you are sitting in that seat of uncertainty, you don't need a full dissertation on what you need to do. You need one word to feel joy again. You need one word to feel encouragement again. And so, for that reason, courage is kind of that first word because it's written for the person going through a season of loss, which is a very scary season to be in.
Yeah, I love that. I love the word courage. And thank you for clarifying because I know the tagline says finding hope in the midst of struggle. So it's
Mhm,
definitely a time where you need those encouraging words, whatever that time may be. Like you
mhm,
said, it could be the loss of a loved one, it could be the loss of a job, a loss of a relationship, just some type of struggle, knowing that this devotional is available for you to lean on. And not only that, I love the way that you shared it because I'm used to devotionals being like you read it every day, like you get a message every day, and but for you to say you can stay on one
mhm,
chapter and one word and
mhm,
soak that in and fully understand what that means to you in this season for weeks if you want to,
mhm.
right? So that's a different perspective of reading devotions, at least for me, reading devotionals or understand that you can just stay on one part and really have that soak in. you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to share if someone reads this book, I know it's not cover to cover reading necessarily, but what is the main thing that you would want them to take away? What would be that one word? I always say one word or phrase that you would like them to take away from the devotional after reading the devotional. What would that one word or phrase be for you?
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say is I've prayed for every reader, right? So I would pray and know that after you read this, there will be a level of calmness that you might feel that I want you to walk away with, a level of peace that even though the circumstances may not change, you feel more equipped and more strengthened to be able to walk through it. um, and definitely hope. Not hope in a personality, but hope that God is with you and you're stronger than you think that you are. I mean, we've heard people say you've made it through every one of your last tough days. And I believe that this will again draw you deeper into a deeper relationship with who God is and how tender and how close He is to you. When things are going well, we don't necessarily spend the time to understand that. But man, when you're going through a season of loss, a season of darkness, a season of being gut wrenched and gut punched, um, I want you to read this book and know that you can make it, that you don't have to quit, that you are right where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I love that. That calm, that peace, that strength. And if it's anything like when you listen to Rosalind, just her talking alone. I know I've heard people say this before that just the way you talk is so calming, so peaceful. So if your writing is like that, I'm almost guaranteeing that you can walk away from this book reading that, and once you read it, you feel calm and strength and peace just from reading the devotional for sure. So we've heard a lot about the devotional. What if someone is interested in purchasing the devotional? What's the best way for them to purchase Power of One?
The Power of One is available on Amazon. It's also available if you want an autographed copy on my personal website, which is roslynrice.com. I will say this as people are going through seasons of loss, there's often an intersection of where you could be celebrating on one hand, yet you're in deep sorrow on another hand. So I don't want the person to think like this is just written for the one that is in depression. You can literally be celebrating and have sorrow at the same time. There's that sweet little intersection that can embody the same person at the same moment. So, but yeah, Amazon or rosalindrice.com is where you can get the autographed copy if you would like. And I leave
Awesome.
a message for you. I will pray, posture myself, and write a message to whoever wants an autographed copy. It's not just a signature.
Got you a message and a signature if you get the signed copy of the book. And I love that you talked about the intersection because you talk about that in the book, an intersection that specifically happened with you when it was coming to your wedding anniversary, your 15th wedding anniversary, and your son. Do you want to share that story a little bit about what's a specific example of an intersection that happened to you?
When he was sick, yeah, that was like when I was talking about, the courage. I never thought that on my anniversary, I would be sitting in a hospital.
Exactly.
Uh, and I remember our 5th anniversary, I was sitting in a hospital for myself. So I'm like, "What's up with these every 5 years?"
Like 20th anniversary, look, right?
We were
Did you
good.
pass the 20th already?
We did, and we're heading towards the 30th. So yes, we have passed that, and
Okay.
we've been good. But the 25th was in the midst of 2020. So like, woo,
Yep,
uh,
yep.
but yeah, it's real. And I always thought that, whatever emotions you're feeling the one thing at a time, that it was just kind of this very linear emotion that you're feeling one emotion at a time. And that's not true. That there's this intersection of grace and grief all at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about you, the work that you do in the world and how you help, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Oh, Let me see. My playground is LinkedIn. If you are on LinkedIn, I am also on Instagram, Roslyn, the number 2 Rice, on LinkedIn. And that's another playground for me where I love to encourage. I feel that in the year that we've had this year, it has been very tumultuous. There's a lot of volatility, a lot of not knowing what is next, and that uncertainty, sitting in that seat of uncertainty can feel incredibly hard because we want to know the plan. But as my pastor says, Pastor Daryl Owens, part of God's plan is not to give us his plan. That's part of the plan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we just have to be totally reliant on who God is in our life. So, if you want to follow and be encouraged, those are the two places to definitely, more so the Instagram if you want to be encouraged. Obviously, LinkedIn is more from a professional space, but that's where I will just leave a video on something that's in my heart. And I'm intentional about it. So
Yeah.
when I post my videos, I spend about 90 minutes a day. I reset my afternoon and I sit and I eat like a normal human. I make myself something to eat. And afterwards, I will sit and just close my eyes and see what the Lord is saying for me for the back half of the day. So whenever I do those videos, talk about spirit led, that's what it is.
Yeah, I love that. You said I sit and eat like a normal human. I just have to highlight that you said that. I sit
Not
and
at
eat
my
like a
best.
normal human. But definitely follow her on Instagram and also on LinkedIn to learn more and to get inspired by what she does. And then on your website, if they want to look into your services and working with you, your website would be the best place for that too, right?
Yes, well, Roslyn Rice is definitely all about the book. But if you're interested in what I do from a business perspective, that is DPI, the number 2.com, DPI, the number 2.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosalind. This has been a great conversation about the power of one and finding hope in the midst of struggle. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening to the Women Faith Plus Business podcast. I hope this episode has been insightful and inspiring and has offered you an opportunity to take action to transform your life and your business. Wherever you are listening, be sure to rate and review the podcast and also subscribe to get the next episode right in your inbox by going to womenfaithandbusiness.com to join our email list.